we're always taught that democracy is the best. But we have to understand where democracy has gone at this point. I think at this point, we look at the U.S. as the world's leading superpower, but the U.S. federal government is the largest organization that has ever existed in the history of mankind, both in terms of headcount and budget, and it's not even close. And so when you get that big of a bureaucracy, it's very difficult for elected officials to even create significant change, to even steer the ship. There's so many tentacles and moving parts that it's actually, pretty difficult for elected officials to, even if they campaign and win on a various platform to do as much as they think they're going to do, right? It's very difficult to, whereas you get a, monarchy or dictatorship, and the common misconception is that they're all evil. It's like, that's not how it is in all of them. I mean, I can look around here. If anyone hasn't come to the UAE, it's going to be a very different, eye-opening experience. It's not going to be what you expect. You think that there's going to be a whole bunch of rules and restrictions, and you can't do certain things. It's like, it's a pretty open culture here. It's a very safe place to be, and all that aside, economically, the most millionaires have been moving to the UAE the last few years of any other place on earth, because they've been very good of how they've been able to attract businesses, attract capital. For those who own a business, you're going to start to understand that if you have roles that don't need to be customer facing, that can be done in a back office, you're going to start to understand that outsourcing might be a good idea to get an office in a different jurisdiction. But then what's going to happen is you're going to go to some of these jurisdictions, like in India or like a Philippines, and you're going to see what a bureaucratic nightmare, disorganized mess it's going to be, as opposed to, that's why a lot of companies will set up in the UAE, because you can actually recruit workers in, and you can create that back office that you're looking for, right? Look at all the top brands. It's like it's very difficult, by comparison, to bring a worker into Canada. The UAE is not necessarily the place you're going to come to recruit people, but it could be a place where you set up a business, and just how they look at housing in general. So most people think that the UAE is just making all their money off oil, which is statistically, mathematically incorrect. It's less than 5% of the revenue comes from oil. When you start to travel here and take some time here, so you start to realize that the UAE makes their money building real estate. And unlike what we're used to in Western countries, where the government builds the cheap, the housing, in the UAE, the government builds the premium housing, and the private developers, build the mid-tier and lower tier stuff, right? And so every time someone, buys a penthouse in one of these buildings, it's like they're effectively paying a tax, but they paid a tax that they agreed to pay. And so, interesting case study, right? Because, you just tend to group it with maybe like an Iran. But an Iran is a completely different animal than the UAE. It's just a massively different animal. And so, but people, just they group all these countries the same without really looking into them. It's missed opportunities, because when you start to see things that work in different countries, it detracts from you being able to be competitive. Because if you can't recognize, the things that work, you can't bring it out, right? You got Saudi Arabia at 27%, and Russia at 15%. Low debt to GDP. It's like
the devil, Putin,
yeah,
stooge.
Of course. Who's he going to borrow from? Like, that's not. He probably would borrow more if he could, but
they cut him off. They completely cut him off. Of course, his debt to GDP is low.
Yeah, so it's we look at some of these, and it's important to kind of know this. And this is where I say any company with a bricks, they're not transparent. Has anybody follow, for anybody who reads that, just follow the US government when they give their financial updates. And then every month they continually revise the updates over and over and over again. For anyone who thinks that only governments in the BRICS countries manipulate their countries and all of the governments in the Western countries don't manipulate their numbers, like, come on, people, like, come on. It's like we're living in a world where the president of the United States, he has dementia. Anyone who's been watching, who's alive with the same brain, knows this guy has dementia. But if you said it before a week ago, it was incorrect but now that CNN has given everyone permission to actually talk about it, we can talk about this. But somehow, they're truthful on everything else. It's like, that's just not how it works. And so if you're believing nothing that's coming out of the BRICS countries and everything that comes out of the G7 countries, like, oh boy, that's not I don't think it's a healthy position if you're actually basing your financial decisions off of that. Right?
Yeah, let's see what other comments we have.
Drill into the replies there. Like I actually, replied to one of them, because the key thing is that, they actually think, okay, they're lying. Okay, let's take that a step further, because I think what they're implying there is they're lying and the BRICS debt is higher. But you have to think about that. That's a hypocritical statement when you say it, because who has the ability to borrow a lot of money? Is it idiots or sophisticated investors? Okay, it's not idiots. Idiots are not sitting around with billions of dollars in capital ready to deploy. That's not who has billions of dollars. Sophisticated individuals have billions of dollars. Sophisticated companies, sophisticated pension funds, sophisticated, sovereign wealth funds, sophisticated family offices, those who have billions of dollars in capital to deploy. So do you think that there's billions of dollars of unrecorded liabilities from pension funds who have bought Iranian sovereign debt? It's like, come on, people. Like, they're not running up to give these guys money. It's, you can't say that you don't believe the numbers, but then somehow there's a whole appetite of rich, affluent investors who are throwing money off at them, that if they have off the books debt. It's like, that's not how it works, people. BlackRock is not calling up, he's not calling up Iran and saying, hey, let's do this one off the books. We're gonna park a few billy with you this week. It's like, that's just not how it's happening. And so will they lie with the numbers? Well, all governments lie. Like, that's it's in the nature of every politician.
You're kidding me. The government lies?
It's not realistic to expect that these BRICS countries have a whole bunch of off-the-books debt, because there's not an appetite for sophisticated investors who buy their bonds. So, you really just have to take that with a grain of salt, right? Could they be less reliable than G7 countries? I mean, they could, but I'll go to the UAE example. It's like, why would they be lying about their debt? They're running a surplus over here. They're not even running a debt. They're the only country on that list on both sides who's running a surplus, for example. So, why would they be lying? They could report 5% higher, 10% higher. It wouldn't affect anything. I don't think it would affect much of what is going on here. Usually, when do you lie? It's like, usually when your back's up against the wall. That's usually when you lie, right? That's the more likely outcome there.